for the consent agenda. This is the administration's list of action items that we've put together in that consent agenda. And there are two items that administration is not ready to move forward with or needs to make changes to. So before you bring forward a motion on the consent agenda, I'd like to pull off item C, which is the board minutes, as well as item D, which is the personnel report.
All right, perfect. Do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda having pulled those specific items? So moved. Do we have a second? Second. Perfect. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. Motion carries.
All right, so now looking at particular items, we'll start with item C of the consent agenda, which is board members. So I'm going to invite Ms. McCabe forward first to present a concern that we had about not only those minutes, but minutes moving forward. And then there's one correction that Lisa's going to bring up as well.
Evening. We're at that time of the year where we're doing our annual renewal with SAM.gov for our entity registration as a potential awardee of federal grants, federal dollars, and we needed an official record of our entity at a board level with our official legal name. And so we do business as Osborne School District, but our official legal name is County of Maricopa, Osborne School District. So the recommendation is to add that to the header of all minutes, last month's minutes that you're will approve tonight, as then any future minutes going forward will have that full legal name now on the header, so that as this comes up annually, we'll have something official that says who we are, who we say we are, in that legal name from the board level.
Any questions about that? The second thing, just in the last month, there was an item on page 3 in the board minutes. It was an approval. It said that Leanne approved it. It was actually you, Ed, that said aye. Leanne's no longer with our board. So just making those two quick changes. So that's it for item C.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have a motion to approve the item C with the revisions?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Then we had one more item.
Yes, the final thing is the personnel items, and the personnel items are listed 1 through 8 of letter D. So letter D has a termination that we're not moving forward with. That is going to proceed, though, however, as a resignation. And so we're asking for approval of the personnel items of the personnel report, which is letter D, items 1 through 4 and 6 through 8. The termination is going to be a resignation.
All right, do we have a motion to approve item D with those revisions?
Move to approve with those revisions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect, motion carries then. And now we're moving on to our board presentation.
Yes, and so I would like to invite Jennifer McLennan forward. You guys should be very familiar with Jennifer, as she represented us for many, many years, but currently works with the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust. You as a board had asked for a presentation. We currently do all of our policies through the Arizona School Boards Association, and I believe it was just before the summer, you guys asked for, as we talked about, our policies, being approved for the next year, and looking into what it would take for us to consider other policies that are out there. And so you specifically, upon my mentioning that the trust offers policy services, you asked for the opportunity to have the trust come before you. So I'm very happy to introduce or reintroduce to the community Jennifer McLennan with the trust.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Rivera, Madam President, members of the governing board. It's really my honor and my privilege to be back here, and it feels very comfortable to me in terms of seeing a lot of old friends. So, and just for your information, I did go to one of your schools in Osborne Elementary for 1st and 2nd grade until my parents moved out of the district's boundaries. So it holds a very special place in my heart, your district. As Dr. Robert said, I'm with the Arizona Risk Retention Trust now half-time, and I assist with their model policy program. And so I'd like to just explain to you a little bit about the model policy program, and then I do have a presentation, and Brandon's agreed to work with me to show you a little bit about the website. So in 2022, the trust the trust has a board of governors similar to what you all have, made of member districts, because your insurance company that insures Osborne Elementary has representative government in terms of the various members from around the state. And that board directed the trust administrators to create a policy program. There were really two concerns. One was that some districts were dropping out of their current policy provider, and having good policies is a safety net for all members. And the other reason was that members were asking for something that was a little bit cleaner, that had was non-judgmental, non-political, apolitical. And so they hired 4 law firms to create. And I was privileged enough to be able to work on the project from the ground up. We started, it was a month of Saturdays, working with the 4 different law firms to create from scratch a policy manual. It was rolled out in the fall of 2022, and the first adopters were districts in December 2023. So we're up to 60 districts now that are either currently participating or will be by the end of this school year. It has, knock on wood, we haven't had any major problems. No one's called and said we're being sued and it's because of your policy, so phew. We're now 3 years in. We can kind of go through, I don't know if Brandon, if you can pull up the PowerPoint, but we'll just kind of go through a little bit about some of the particulars. And please stop if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me and let me know. So next slide, maybe Brandon, I don't know. Oh, here we go. So again, this is what I reviewed with you. They were made from scratch with the 4 law firms because the trust wanted an overall risk management solution. They're customizable. It's a very easy platform. I love our platform. It's called Microscribe, and I'll show it to you. Streamlined works. We did not reiterate the statutes within the policy. That was really important to the lawyers working on it. So we made it so that it's easier to read, I hope. That's the intent. Next slide, please. There are 5 chapters. The first 2 are really your work, so district governance and the administration of your district, which is really 2 policies about Dr. Robert. One is his hiring, and then one is his evaluation. Chapter 3 is the business operations side of the house, so all things finance. There's also things in that chapter that would address issues like your security controls, record keeping, your transportation department, your food services. Chapter 4 would be Ms. Woodland's area, so that is all human resources. And your current policy manual has different policies for certified versus classified or support staff. We merged those into one. And then the final chapter is the largest chapter, as it should be. It's about your students. There's also a glossary, quick start. We also have a form bank on the trust website. Next slide. Oh, you think I'm working? Okay. We have policies for CTEDs. You can absolutely personalized. So if there are policies work that Osborne's already done and you want to include those, that's easy to do. It's easily accessible from the website. This is what the platform looks like when you interface from the trust website, but most districts will just have these links on their website, so they would just pull up Osborne Elementary's policies. This is an example of Chapter 1. So the policies, the numbers are on the far left, and when you click on that, you would get to a policy. Those individual entries noted with a point A or a point B are the trust procedures that would supplement. So we've got up in front and center all of the EEO policies, as well as the policies that would be governance for the board, like your rules of order, open meeting law requirements, that kind of thing. This is an example of a district policy where the district wanted the first policy in the manual to be about their goals that they'd adopted, so that's not a problem to do. These are the current policy users, and then we've added on these specific districts in the last year. So 10 districts in the last year. as I said, we're up to about 30. The fee is a good fee. Right this year it's $500. The trust board, and that would include all technical support to get the manual up and running. If Dr. Robert had a legal question, he could ask Ms. Sanchez or Udall Shumway, your current legal provider, to assist with prepaid legal, but it won't, if you choose to move down this path, most of the work would be covered with that $500 fee. It would only be if your administrative team had a really specific question for legal. The fees are adjusted based on size. The max would be $3,500. So it would go up in year 2 to $1,500, year 3, $2,500, but it's adjusted for size. So that would be the maximum for Osborne Elementary would fit within. What level of that, Dr. Robert? So middle level, that's what I figured. So, so you would be capped at 2,500. In terms of the procedures to join, you would download and make sure that you preserve your current policy manual, because that would go away, obviously, if you choose to go down this path. And then indicate the board would approve the model policy agreement. My guess would be that you would want to start at the beginning of the 26-27 school year. That's the likely break. So your administrative team would have this school year to transition, but we do have districts that are moving quicker than that if you wanted to. And then again, you'd start working to review policies. I have gotten a school district up and running, and it was a unified school district in 10 days, literally, and within those 10 days was the 4th of July, so we can move fast if we have to, but you don't want to if you don't have to, because you can take the time to work with all your constituents, with your education association, with your parents, and see, if they have any input to the process. The board could consider the policy manual in one fell swoop, or you can consider different chapters. You could have study sessions, really any which way that Ms. Ramos and the board chooses to move forward in terms of considering you could do. You all are in the prepaid legal system, so you would be fine there. So, and then eventually you would provide that you would have a final adoption of the policies and link them to the Microscribe platform. That takes about 2 weeks to do. Once you're done with your review and they're board approved, it takes about 2 weeks to create the site. So, and then there's some downstream changes. These policies creep up in places you don't expect. They're on your website, they're in your handbooks, they're on forms, so you have to make sure that those are changed. And we help with all that. And then part of our job, Lillian Lee is my coordinator at the trust as well. We put out annual updates based on legislative changes. So we had 3 last year, one on Title IX, one on the new changes to the law, and then we issued one in May when the legislature had changes to things like use of the cell phones and changes to directory information. We wanted to get that information to schools so that they could do that work over the summer if they chose. We have site-based training, so I've done board orientations. We do open meeting law training. I just trained a board on mandatory reporting. So if you ask for it, we can fashion, and I can do that. And then we have one event a year, the Policy Governance Summit, which is a one-day kind of mini law conference in August. So that's it. There's a ton of information on the Trust website, including videos that are actually quite hilarious if you want to watch videos about all of us creating the model policies. And there's, I think, some animated versions. So, but, you're free to ask me any questions. I don't know, Brendan, if you could pull up so I'm going to just show you what the Trust interface website is. This is the interface. And then if you could click onto the AF, right. So and if you could keep maybe clicking the G, all of the letters, so that we'll see. So these are the current users, all of those. And so why don't we just pick any of them, really? So any old school district. So Agua Fria, that's perfect. So your logo would be up there. The left-hand side are the chapters that we discussed, 1 through 5. There's a glossary of terms. Agua Fria hasn't inputted forms, but sometimes there'll be a policy form button there that the districts can show. And then Brandon, if you wouldn't mind going up to the quick search bar that's in the far right and maybe just typing in the word boundaries and then hitting enter. And so that'll pull up any policy with the word boundary in it. So if we maybe go to the employee, so any of those, and then if you go down, the links work, so you click on a link, you should go to the statute, and so that's the website is able to be translated. It's compliant with the laws concerning the visual and the hearing impaired. So it's very user-friendly. And they're very quick to, Lisa would love us because she'd send us the policies, we'd get them uploaded for you. So that's probably everyone's favorite part. So that is what I had to present to you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions?
Jennifer, good to see you.
Nice to
It's
see you
it's
too,
been
Ed.
a pleasure in the past to work with you. Would love the opportunity to work with you again. Should that be something that the board does? Just a question, and maybe just a thought we can kind of talk about. We have a lot of unique policies in Osborne. Maybe not. I don't know if a lot, but we have some important unique policies. Some we've talked about in the past, like meet and confer, like so policies that the policy committee has done a lot of work on,
Mhm.
and like leave policies and things like that. And so, I'm sure that's not unique to other districts, probably do too. I wouldn't want, I guess a concern would be if we're kind of changing our policies somewhat wholesale. I wouldn't want to get lost in that shuffle, the important unique policies that we have to Osborne. So is that something that you do? I would want our OEA to be at the table for every step of that to make sure that those things don't get lost in the shuffle or accidentally have some sort of conflicting thing in there. How do you deal with that
Sure.
with districts that have, unique policies that have been negotiated over time and kind of consensus built with the board and other stakeholders to make
And
sure
Jennifer-
that we're keeping those things intact?
And Jennifer, as you prepare to answer that, members, I forwarded you an email from Jennifer that has a welcome guide as well as an FAQ sheet. And so if you go into that welcome guide, part of it is, like the fast track or the medium approach or the extended timeline, which kind of gets into that transition. So I think that's a big question is, what does that transition look like? Is it page by page? Is it, so that we don't lose those Osborne-y things?
Absolutely. Thank you. Madam President, Mr. Hermes, let me answer your first question, and then I'll get to Dr. Robert's point about how not to lose. So the first thing that we would do would be to go to your existing platform and note which of your policies don't have copyrights, because in all likelihood, those are the policies that you've already changed. We also can work with your administration to create a very specific Osborne crosswalk so that you don't lose any of the good material. So there will be some times where you may have changed only a portion of the policy manual or the policy that you're working on. So for instance, we don't offer a meet and confer sample, but you have a robust meet and confer policy. We just lift that policy straight up and give it a number and stick it in chapter 4. That's where it goes. And there's a whole employee rights section in chapter 4, so it just fits nicely in there. And I would say about a third of our districts have meet and confer policies up and running on the platform. There may be other policies that you would make decisions about whether this is still important to you, whether you want to keep it. So that's part of the beauty of doing this transition is you have a chance to re-examine with the current board about what policies you want to have in place for current day. And then to your point, Dr. Robert, in terms of trying to make sure that we are capturing it all, what we would do would be to create the crosswalk, work with your administrative teams, and you could divide it out however you want, to look at each chapter. And we provide you with each of the 5 chapters in a Word version that are highlighted with all the choices that your team would have to make. And some are easy. We heard her say your legal name is County of Maricopa Osborne Elementary. Well, there's a place in the policy manual to put your legal name, right? Some of them would be choices for the board, whether you want to review policies in 1 meeting or 2. That's a choice for you legally, and so you can make that decision, and that's in chapter 1. Other decisions would be things in your business department. Do you offer overtime? Do you offer compensatory time, or do you not? There's 2 different versions of the overtime policy about that. So your administrative team would go through with the tools we've created, a checklist, this Word documents that are highlighted so that you're not missing anything. And then you would start the work of going through and incorporating anything that is a Osborne unique policy and asking us where to put it. So the end product to the team here would be 5 chapters in clean versions, although you certainly could see the work product. Some school districts throw it all in a Google Drive and have access to various people. Some just pass them back and forth. The leave policies, Mr. Hermes brought up, those are difficult. That's probably the one area where you do have to have a legal person looking at it, because every school district is unique and we don't want to lose anything for the employee group. So if they have paid days out after a certain amount of time after being here, you're not going to lose that. So we want to make sure, and those are often in weird places. So, they're in the retirement policy sometimes. So we go through, make sure what your bereavement policy stays the same. And I check that. I check that very carefully. And then we can also run it by legal. Did that answer?
I think so, and that's helpful. And we have, I know recently, I think even maybe earlier this year, when there were some proposed policy changes that would maybe reduce the amount of protections that we have over protected classes like LGBTQ plus people and employees and folks, that we specifically chose not to make those changes. So they might still be copyrighted, but we chose to continue those protections. It's really important to us as a district. So I just want to make sure that if we go forward, that those things don't get lost and that we keep Osborne.
Sure. Well, there's language within the EEO policies that provides for further definition of the word sex to include gender identity and sexual orientation and all of those things. So we can accommodate that.
And you'll see in that welcome guide, and part of it is the work that we as administration would be doing with the trust on reviewing those things. But then there's also what we would bring to work study sessions. So that's where we're being public with it and kind of going through and making sure that everything that we are expecting. Remember Patty back in the day doing this when we weren't changing the policy manual, just a thorough review of all the policies, right? Going through and making sure that it's an accurate reflection of who we are now. That opportunity will be there as a collaborative look through at those policies.
One last question, Madam President. I know the cost, you mentioned the 500 at the start, kind of ramping up to 2,500 per year. What is that in terms of what we're paying now? Is this, would we be saving money? Was this?
Oh, yeah.
equivalent?
Yeah, I would. I think policy. So first, there's being a member of ASBA, which is one set of costs, and then there's policies, which is another set of costs, which is based on, just as the trust is on school population. I believe our current, I'd have to look it up, but I think it's $4,500 for the policy services and well over $10,000 just for membership to ASBA. So I know in total POs to ASBA, we cut probably $15,000 to $20,000.
Great. All for saving money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
there is a choice for the board to make there. You can remain members of ASBA but not use their policy services if you want it.
So
Right.
it's the trust, we're looking at strictly policy services. There's no legislative advocacy component. One of the things I really like about ASBA is that they have a full-time dedicated legislative liaison who speaks to the governing boards and works full-time at the Capitol when legislative session is happening. Is there any component that the trust does would do for us if we move to policy services with the trust?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking that question. There's not. So the trust has lobbyists that would go down and look only at risk concerns. So that is, one benefit that you would lose if you don't stay with ASBA. But as I indicated, you can retain your membership and those services as well. But the direction from the trust board was to create a situation that was nonpartisan. So we don't lobby on behalf of school districts in terms of educational issues. The trust does have a lobbyist that would lobby on behalf of school districts if it directly affects liability or risk.
Thank you.
Part of the reason that we didn't ask you in last year when we started this conversation was that we were in multi-year agreements with ASBA about policies, and that runs through the 25-26 school year. So if the board were to want to move forward in this direction and working with the trust on the model policy services, what can you walk us through what that looks like in terms of? You mentioned about the notification, but is that, formalized board meeting where we're making a motion to move policy services here, or, can just
Sure.
kind of walk us through the legalese of making any
Thank you.
transitions?
Thank you, Dr. Robert. So if you decide that you want to move forward with transition, you would need to have an action item at a public meeting to adopt the model policy program agreement.
For the 26-27 school year?
For the 26-27 school year. The trust would then initiate, you would sign it and send it, and we get the agreement going. And then the idea would be to transition your policies and get the work done by latest end of May, if we can, even earlier in May, so that we have the month of June to create the platforms that I was showing you. Because I don't want you to run into a situation where you're July 1 and you don't have policies up to speed and available. We did have districts that joined late, in July, and there was some delay this year. So I would want to make sure that your work was done in May so that we could have all of June to create that. So that's the mechanism, is to adopt the model policy agreement. You would notify ASBA that you weren't signing for the next year at some point.
And just for members to know, I have my weekly meetings with my fellow superintendents, one of whom did a kind of over the summer transition, and it got done, but it was hard. So it's not the type of thing that I would recommend that we wait and try and get done in the spring. You wanted this early, so we can discuss for future board agenda items whether or not we want to bring something forward. But this is not just a presentation, but also discussion. So opportunity for more questions and discussion.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to come back here. I really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
so
always
much.
welcome back.
Thank you. I might take you up on that.
You can
All
spend the evening with us as well. Mike's got a great presentation coming up.
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much. All right, so we're going to move on to the administrative report since the August meeting. Do we have any comments? No, we're good. All right. So thank you so much for all of that information the principal submitted and all the district staff. And it's good for us to see what our district is looking like. Now we have information updates. So we'll get started with the bond update.
Not you. Yeah. Elizabeth, yes. Current bond, not future bond.
Hello, good evening. President Ramos, Governing Board, Dr. Rivera, Lisa too. Thank you. It's been a while since we have met in this format, so thank you in advance for letting me present to you. I'll keep it a little brief. There's actually been quite a lot since the last time we met, but I do want to just give you some of the general information. I do have a couple people with core construction here, so I'll introduce them at the part where we get to the CMAR that they'll be working on. So for district-wide, I don't see this up yet, but I'll just kind of give you. So for the completed summer projects, what we've worked on, we had the SPED, the JOC contract at Encanto, right? So we worked on that. We're pretty much done with that. The wall padding is complete. Shade structures at Encanto and Clarendon. I'm sure you guys have seen those. We did some test and balance at the Clarendon gym, able to discover quite a few things. Sam and I worked on that. Clarendon gym bleachers, same thing. Sandy sewer lining, we were able to complete quite a bit of this next week, tomorrow night and next week. We'll do some evening work there so it doesn't interfere with the schools. But we're getting, very far on that Sandy sewer lining. The Peerless Plumbing has been great. They have given proposals. A lot of it they haven't even billed on because they didn't need to do a lot of it. So we have a really good handle on that. Montecito Central Plant, that's another thing we worked on during the summer. And immediate kitchen needs. So we've got some dough dividers that are underway. We had some icing up in the OMS chiller. We have a door that was broken in between Solano's cooler. So a lot of things going on, small things. We moved some ovens around so that, we've kind of got those kitchens, underway. We worked a lot on marquees. That's going to be really exciting. That's coming up. Tomorrow I've got the last of an electrician walk. So we're pretty close on that. Design is done, and it's just a matter of getting those in place as soon as we can get on the schedule. So that's really exciting on that. So things that are continuing to be in progress from our summer design list. We've got this boardroom. So we're going to be doing some updates. Dr. Robert has kind of taken the reins with that, and he's working with SPS Architects and one of their great designers. So that's going to be exciting to see what those schematics are going to be. Longview Field and Playground. So we've got Altitude Rec, who we worked with through Game Time. Game Time has the grant. They did it last year. They're doing it again this year. We got immediate notification that this was happening, so I've already started an iteration of that playground. Ken's been great. And I also am working now. Ken's going to do some surveying. I remember telling you guys before that these schools really survey their students and their staff, and they try to get an idea and get the excitement for everybody. Jeff can attest to that. He thought these kids were going to want one thing, and in the end, they wanted something else, and they love it. So in the progress of doing that, grant has an expiration at the end of October. So we're just trying to make sure we get that order in place, but there's kind of a lot of moving parts because that field has some grading and drainage. We need to figure out how far we can push out. So more to come on that. We've got instructional learning spaces. So we've been working across the campuses with all of the different principals and specific selected by their principals staff that will have good input. So SPS Plus and I have been meeting with them on a regular basis. We present to the district leadership. Tomorrow we're doing another presentation to Abby. So ongoing on that. And that, actually, this is probably where I'll bring you guys up. Yeah, let's go ahead. Even though we're going to talk about the CMAR part of it, the instructional learning spaces, CORE is the awarded CMAR construction firm for that. So we've all worked with CORE before, as you know. We're excited about that, and I just want to let them give a chance to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Drew Kyle. I'm with Core Construction on the business development side, and this is the one that does all the work, so I'll let him talk.
Hi, how are you guys? Great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. Just excited to see what these 5 campus renovations look like. Excited to come back to you, and we have a little bit more working hand in hand with SPS. We just got some conceptual design documents. So we're going to start the conceptual estimating phase and come back as we need to, obviously working hand in hand to make sure that we're not going above budget and designing actually to fit within it. So that's the goal of the project, and just excited to be here and part of this district.
Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you so much, you guys. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you soon. So we've got district-wide child nutrition. That's another CMAR. We are already kind of getting all of that underway. Storage across campuses, that's I have to tell you, that's one of the biggest asks from every principal. And so making the determinations of this is what's been used for storage, probably shouldn't be being used for storage, but we all know how that goes, and trying to incorporate finding appropriate spaces for storage in conjunction with SPS Plus working through the instructional learning spaces, which really kind of touches on all of the classrooms and all of the space there. And then intercom and security, that's also been another ongoing and large project. We've got a lot of information on that. I think we'll probably share a little bit more on that for sure. The company that we're working with is starting at Montecito, and that's a really good place for them to kind of shine and show actionably that they can handle what this district is impressing on them for what their needs are here for both intercom and security. And we'll see how they perform on the Montecito side, and in the process, we're also getting everything lined up so that it will all fall in place for the other campuses as well. So just a little recap to the governing board approvals that we've gone through. We have the Montecito Central Plant. That was the GMP 1 portion. We just met, and thank you so much for taking the time during your summer to meet with us during that work study. Those are really beneficial. We try not to ask for those very often, but it did make a great difference, and so we thank you for that. We've got that GMP 2 in place. The 2 CMARs that we have in progress and will be coming with GMPs on those as well are the instructional learning spaces, the updates and configurations, and then the district-wide child nutrition modernizations. We just completed the JOC and Canto sped, so that one is also something you guys have given approval on. Any questions so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just really excited about Longview, the playground over there, very much in need of an upgrade and additions. It's just not big enough. There's very little shade. I would almost say no shade. There's very little shade when we desperately need shade over there. See the kids playing out there, and it's still really hot. And we're, for at least half of the school year, probably more than that, it's still really hot. So really need shade over there. Just better playgrounds all around. The basketball court, there's rocks right next to the basketball court, so the kids are always kind of slipping around over there, kind of on the rocks they get on the basketball court. Something to keep in mind. But my bigger point is I really encourage, soon, we need to get teacher input on this, because the teachers are the ones who are seeing the kids out there every day. And it's great to get kids involved too, no doubt about it. It's my kids still talk about helping with the design, the Encanto playground, super exciting. But I think teachers really have a great insight and can see what's going on over there.
Prior to your kids getting involved in that survey,
Yeah.
the teachers were
Good.
involved. So it's very much part of the process.
Good.
But thank you for asking, because I didn't mention that, yes.
The so that's for Longview specifically. Is that, you said, designed for the summer, or are we building that in this coming summer?
Well, I was hopeful and anticipating that there would be a grant. We weren't going to know that until the end of July. So I wanted to be prepared for that in the regard that we knew that we were either going to be able to push that playground out 3 feet, 5 feet maybe, one way, or if potentially we could go into the field area, that could be another way, and that could gather a lot more space. Of course, if there's a new swing set bay, that takes up quite an amount of space for falling, right? That fall zone is pretty large. So again, we're in this first iteration. It moves pretty quickly. I know Kim and Sarah will for sure this Encanto playground is very large. But once we get to these iterations and what are the options, that part moves pretty quickly.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
that helps.
As quick as we can do it over there at Longview, they really need it. Last time I was there, it was like a kind of a big kind of mound of dirt over there. I don't know what was going on with that, but it really needs some upgrades over there. And so really anything you can do to pull out the stops to get that done as quickly as possible.
Yes,
Thank you.
heard. Thank you. Anybody else on this? Okay, let me just move quickly.
Real quick,
Yes, of
since
course.
nobody asked us a question. Boardroom, what's the thought about the boardroom where we're sitting? I know that
Yeah.
was on there.
So the last, there are just some, I mean, if you just kind of look, it's kind of empty white walls. So just not anything that's breaking down walls. That was done last bond.
Yeah.
So, a lot of money was spent on the boardroom. This was a much smaller room oriented over in that direction. It was expanded considerably. It's more in terms of design, not in terms of major construction work. So,
Yes.
yeah. And
operational,
also
sorry.
thinking about the space that Brendan uses, centralizing that, making, creating a workspace that's not just a couple tables that we found from around the district, but, having everything, some branding to the board. There's nothing in here that says that we're Osborne School District, right? So we're doing some things to put a nice flavor on the branding. This is not just an opportunity for us to come here, but we've held some community meetings here. We've had folks in here for different purposes, and when people come in, we want it to represent Osborne, to represent the values. So I'll be sharing ideas with you that the SPS team has been working on designing, but beautification more than construction.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. All right. So on Montecito, Montessori renovations, we had our pre-con kickoff, not last week, but the week before. So that was great. Everybody's involved. We've got Stephanie, who was a part of those. Since then, we did a student assembly for construction. That was really great. Chase building team did a really great job in engaging the kids, getting them excited, and allowing opportunities for all of those kids to ask questions. But they also got to see what it looks like to have construction vests, hard hats, all of that, so that the kids know they can get excited. They know where to go, where not to go. So that was really a great and fun experience. And
And it was also a kickoff really for them to see all of the folks from Chase that they're going to be seeing and a little bit of career exploration. Like,
Yes.
what are the different things that you can do? Like, I'm this person, I do this. I was really good at this when I was in school, you know, kind of recognizing career pathways that may exist for them. Construction doesn't necessarily mean the building and breaking down of things, right? There's the design, there's the financing of it all. There's so much that goes into it. So recognizing pathways.
agreed, and it's a great team out there for that very thing. Kate Gunther, you've met her. She's a senior PM out there. She had butterfly wings on, and you know they did a great job doing that. So excitement building, progress sharing with parents. Stephanie is constantly asking me, "Hey, do we have some photos we can use? What can I share? What are some good methods, signage, so that the parents can see what's happening?" Beyond that, we want people to see what's happening from the street level. So those are conversations, and we want you to know that is very heavily in conversations. So that is forthcoming. Chase has an excellent marketing team, so we're kind of waiting to see where they go with it to, you know, so it's not just what you see orange fencing. And I think Colleen put it best, is this going to be a Canes or what's happening here, right? So we want to make sure that it's clear so that people are starting to be excited and they can start looking into it. And that's enrollment building for you guys.
Have you guys driven down 7th Street and seen, you know, what it looks like? The current look of it, you know, there's fencing around the school, but we want it to be absolutely recognized. Like, we're open. This isn't just something that's coming. It's happening right now. So, you know, that's part of what Elizabeth's alluding to is using the marketing team for really showing people what is coming while the construction's happening, so they don't think it's a closed school site.
And a lot for Chase right now, right? So I know that they've kind of turned that over to their marketing team. I've reached out to them as well, but they're really focused, that team, on demo, making safe the electrical. That's what they're working on now. The plumbing, this, that, and the other. We're working with Procore Technology, so we all have access. Stephanie has access to it too, so we can all see the daily reports, who's on site, and basically where things are going every day. And then just that ongoing marketing signage that I spoke about. So that's what we have going on. Any additional questions? Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, we're going to move on to our new standing item, the OEA presentation.
All right. Good evening, President Ramos, members of the Governing Board, and Superintendent Dr. Robert. We're very excited to be speaking to you tonight in our first agendized OEA update for the 2025-2026 school year. During these updates, we'll be sharing information related to our monthly general meetings, our union activity, collected feedback we have received, as well as any pertinent information or recommendations about board agenda items. Part of the continual ongoing work that OEA does is to support employees through their advocacy needs by providing information, hearing concerns, or supporting through representation during meetings. This will be ongoing. We'll share this every month, but between the dates of July 31st and September 15th, we have supported in 12 advocacy cases for employees. And we also wanted to provide an update on our most recent OEA meeting that took place September 4th at Solano. The topic of our September meeting was Know Your Rights. Our guest speaker for the meeting was Arizona Education Association's, and I apologize for this title, it's very long, Advocacy Bargaining Organizational Consultant, Susie Seep. Susie shared information and resources pertaining to employee rights, Arizona state law, and how to access district policy. In addition to the main topic, attendees participated in sharing feedback related to class size, requesting use of annual leave blackout days, and policy GCL, which is the professional staff schedules and calendars policy. That will be our collection piece for the month of feedback. So we'll be, or for the month of September for feedback. So we'll be continuing to gather in those areas for the duration of this month. We'd also like to celebrate the opportunity we had at the end of August to meet with Dr. Robert and Dr. Woodland. It was a positive chance for Kirsten and I to introduce ourselves as the new co-president team for OEA, and we were able to begin conversations about starting Meet and Confer, and we look forward to our continued partnership in that endeavor. We appreciate the openness of the conversation and look forward to future opportunities to support staff and students. This evening, we were interested to hear Jennifer McLennan's presentation about the Trust Model Policy Program. OEA is committed to participating in any policy work that takes place, and we look forward to engaging in the work of going through policy by policy to ensure that those policies related to the work that OEA does remain in place if the board does decide to go in that direction. We're excited again to be able to share an update with you all this evening, and we look forward to sharing next month. And with that, we conclude the September OEA update.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the update, and looking forward to hearing the rest of the updates throughout the school year.
Thank you so much.
All right, and we will move on to the bond financing presentation. Now it's you.
Bond. We're sure it's you this time.
I'm just here in case you guys have questions, but I have full confidence that
thank you.
Mike will be able to answer all of them better than I could.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Robert. It's a pleasure to be before you this evening. This is your second bond sale opportunity. A resolution is before you this evening in the action item section. It's your second sale from your $100 million bond election that you had back in 2023. And this amount is not to exceed $40 million. I did just have a one-pager I'd like to review with you, if you wouldn't mind. There it is. And I apologize to the audience. There's some big numbers on there, but small font, so it's hard to see. But just going from left to right, I'm just going to kind of update you on your program here.
And just real quick, Mike, for those of you following along on your laptops, it's page 210 in your board packet.
Okay. Give you guys a chance to. 210 pages, goodness.
It was 271 total.
Oh, goodness. Well, that's why I only brought one page to go through, instead of the typical packet. But this is your second sale, so we didn't need to go too deep. Again, your second sale, going from left to right, briefly, the district's assessed valuation is that second column there. That's your assessed value is like what is your taxpayer value in the district. And you can see in column 3, this is the projected growth that we at Stiefel have plugged in. You're running around a 4%, in 5 to 10 year average, historical average, about a 4% tax rate growth. We brought it down to 3% to be conservative because your most recent year is 3.22, as you can see in 25-26, that third column. And so even with a 3%, though, we can accomplish the objectives of the district, and we'll show you that here in a second. The next couple columns refer to your bonds you've already sold. That's columns 4 and 5. The debt service, and the debt service is your principal and interest. So that's your mortgage payment, if you will, of your old debt. And now we're layering in this new $40 million issuance with your approval this evening. Right now we're looking at a 20-year amortization. This is columns 6, 7, and 8. We've plugged in principal there of what we believe it'll be, pretty close. We plugged in an estimate interest rate of 5%. We believe it'll be, somewhere around probably 4.25. I know, Mr. Thompson, you just did $45 million at Tempe L. I don't know if you remember your average rate, but anyway, my colleague helped him at Tempe L just recently, last couple of weeks. So, and the market interest rates are starting to trend down over the past couple of weeks. So it's a good time to be in the market. But right now we have a placeholder of 5%. We hope to outperform it and get a lower rate for you. We're always trying to be conservative in our projections and then hopefully outperform it. So then whatever you see here, the tax rates, for instance, are maybe slightly lower. You can see then we also program in your 2 remaining bond sales after this sale, and that's in columns 9, 10, and 11, 12. Again, those are just plugged in, and they're estimates around the timing. We're thinking, at least right now, talking to staff, October of 2027 for your next sale. That's columns 9 and 10, 25 million. And again, it can be sooner than that or later, depending on how things progress with these projects. And then a placeholder sale out in 2028 for $5 million. And that's really, I believe, right now to accomplish any of your furniture, technology, and equipment needs that you might have out there. And then if you have any other capital improvement needs for buildings, finishing up your projects, then we can also make part of that $5 million towards that as well. All of that being said is in columns 14, that's our estimated bond tax rate. That tax rate is a projection. It's based on the projection and your tax value growth back on the first column, the second column, using 3% growth for a few years and then 2% thereafter. But it's pretty close. We think it's close. And so column 14 is your bond tax rate right around the $1.43 to $1.47 over the next several years. We also then, in that green box, keep in mind all your capital projects, including your DAA override. And your DAA override estimate on tax rates is in the 25-26 cent range. And so then your combined tax rate for capital, okay, so we're not including your M&O override, is roughly less than $1.70. And so we're doing our best to kind of keep a target of $1.70 or less on both anything related to capital. And that's kind of how we had programmed it before the election, and we're doing our best to stay at or below that as well. So with that, when you entertain the action item, you have a resolution before you. It's a parameters resolution. It authorizes staff to move forward with the sale of bonds if you approve it, as long as the bonds are sold within certain parameters. Those parameters are outlined in the document, like not to exceed a certain interest rate, not to exceed 20 years, not to exceed 40 million. Assuming with your approval this evening, we will be securing the rating this week from the rating agency, which is your credit rating, your credit score, if you will, and then looking to be in the market as early as middle of next week to lock in rates. And that's really important, is locking in those rates. After that, delivery of funds will be in 2 to 3 weeks. That's when the money will be in your accounts at the county. So with that, I'll pause to see if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Mine was more of a comment than a question of just, more for us as a board and as a district. I would love to see the next sale be sooner than I think you said October 2027, which
Okay.
means we are moving quicker on projects. We've got a lot of needs in the district,
Yeah.
a lot of needs to address. We're addressing them, but I'd love to see that. Plus, I'm always concerned about price escalation. So the quicker we can get these projects done and moving on to the next one, I think we'll save money. I've never heard of, at least as long as in my adult lifetime, never heard of things, construction prices going down over time. They always seem to go up. So if we can get more projects done more quickly. So that's more of a comment, not a question, but I appreciate you kind of thinking about that.
Inflation has been, pretty rough the past, 5+ years. It's probably slowed down a little bit, but it's not as bad as 2 or 3 years ago, most likely. And honestly, the core guys or the Chase guys could really speak to that. What they've been seeing, it's really the construction prices and the labor and all that. But but it's true. I mean, we can see negative inflation, but it's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. Deflation, if you will.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Thank
Good
you.
point. Yeah, we're happy. I think, like, for instance, as an example, we moved this sale up, I want to say 6 months, Colleen? Yeah. So anyway, so if we can do it again, or if you're ready, with these projects, you're close to being finished, kind of like the last program that she was talking about. I don't know the lady's name, pardon me. But yeah, just like that, we can accelerate the bonds. We have a flexibility to do that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a question on what our overall debt capacity is. I know, sorry to put you on the spot on that
No,
one,
I
but
actually have another document I can reference
to
there.
try to see, all right, if we sell these bonds, to take it even a step further than Mr. Hermes, is to go out for another bond for more improvements. But I'm curious as to what that debt capacity is.
Yeah, as you know, Mr. Thompson, because you're in the business, in terms of capacity, current capacity is $65 million, roughly, 64.8 million. And so you're only taking down 40 of it, so you'll have another 20, let's just round to 25 million, even after selling this 40 million. That doesn't mean, though, that capacity can grow two ways. Growth in your tax base. So remember, we're estimating roughly 3% growth or 4% growth, somewhere around there. If you continue to get something like that, your bonding capacity will go up each year. You also regain bonding capacity by paying off old principal of your old debt. And so I don't have a projection. Actually, I might, of where we think you might be. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it on these documents. But I think you can, at least right now, as long as you get that 2, 3, 4% growth in your tax base over the next few years, you can comfortably sell the remaining of this bond program. The question is going forward. We've seen districts with pretty historically, high growth in assessed value up until this year. This year it moderated. The previous 4, 5, 6 years, it was doing nothing but almost double digits, or 5 to 10 to 15% growth. That really helps your bonding capacity. Most of our clients will probably be challenged going forward in not having like that double-digit growth. But if you still, it doesn't mean you're going to have negative growth per se. I hope you don't. But you may have slower, bonding capacity growth, if you will, in the future. So that will be a challenge probably for your next bond program, unless, of course, I know there are some projects being added to the tax rolls, some growth we talked about with the rating agencies. So that always helps too. New construction, the multifamily housing and stores and whatnot that are happening in the district boundaries. That always helps.
My other question is just in regards to the tax rate, and taxpayers like, more than anything, kind of consistency on that. So I think we were looking at $1.69 on that. Is that pretty much staying in, like, because as we pay off, it can go down and up and things like that. Is it pretty much staying smooth on that level for?
Well, that's our goal. That's our goal. And as long as we can sell bonds every year or every other year, we can stay pretty close to that. So if you go several years without selling bonds, the debt service will start to trend down, and then your tax rates will go down. But as you have this bond program, we're trying to fill in so you can pay off principal and regain capacity, but also be mindful of what the voters pass in terms of the voter pamphlet and the projection and tax rate. So yeah, we're mindful, and we're doing our best to stay at or below, like I said, the $1.70. But yeah, the goal is to stay right around there, between the two, with the DAA as well.
And I would just add that the historical tax rates were also in the administrative reports, which shows us like a 5-year look back to FY22's tax rates. And if you look at the secondary rate, we've been really consistent right around $2.15 to $2.17. This year's is $2.13, so we've kind of been right there. We did have a little bit of a dip in FY24 where our secondary was $2, but that was part of that timing of when you get additional voter authorization and when you're going out for your sale, and it wasn't layered in soon enough to then maintain kind of that consistency. It had dipped a little bit as our debt service that year was lower than what the year before had been. But once we issued as part of the new 100 million program, then we're right back up into that consistent kind of window there with our secondary rate.
And you guys know, as having both been in leadership with our PAC in the past, what the message is when you're out there hitting the pavement and selling it to the community. And there's a big difference in how you're able to sell it if you're able to maintain that tax rate. So the sooner we go out, it took us 10 years before we went out, from 2017. Then we came back in 2022, the board approved, went out, got a 23. So you can see that we've already changed the pattern from that 10 years to maybe every 5 to 7 years. So just, as you were talking about, what that tax rate is, and as we pay off debt services, not as much time is going with the debt services. So, what is the impact going to be, on the community? Just always keeping that in mind.
One quick question. You mentioned kind of the growth and debt capacity. As I look at the properties in a lot of the neighborhoods, I see massive deltas between the LPVs and the FCVs. And, of course, those Rural A, those are ticking up at 5% to try to catch.
That's right.
There's such a huge delta.
Huge, yeah.
Huge delta in our neighborhoods. And then I see more buildings coming on, multifamily, increasing our debt capacity. It just seems to me like the projections, given this big deltas between the LPVs and the FCVs, and we're getting, more buildings in, it seems like 3-4% increase in value, assessed value seems kind of conservative.
Yeah, great question. The net full cash assessed value is different than the net limited assessed property value, and that net limited is what's restricted to 5% growth, as you know, and that's how you derive your tax rates. But the net full cash is unrestricted as to growth, and so it can go up and down depending on what's going on in the market. We saw on that number, that's not the tax rate one up there, but for bonding capacity, we saw that number actually decline 3% this year for your district in 25-26. But we saw that across many districts. It was a little bit surprising for us to see that. However, if you look at the previous 2 years, you're talking almost historic growth in that number for most districts in the valley.
But the decline,
but it could still go back up.
The slight decline in FCV.
Yes.
Because of that huge delta with the LPV, that doesn't really impact us.
So to answer your question, the reason why we're just hoping for 3 or 4% is maybe just because this year you had a negative number. I'm hoping for 3 or 4 going forward, if not more, on that net full cash number. The red one, the net limited assessed property value, that grew at 3% this year. It'll continue to grow.
Oh, yeah.
Up to 5%, depending on what's going on with everybody's property values in the district boundaries. And again, everything I'm talking about here is just on the net limited is just existing growth. If a home went up 15% 2 years ago in market value, that taxed value is still going to climb another 5% next year, right? It's catching up because it's maxed out at 5% each year. And again, you have, I believe, some pretty good construction in the area that I believe will hit the tax rolls, as we talked about with staff, with the rating agency in the next year, maybe 2 years. There's an 18-month lag, 18-month to 2-year lag. So when a certificate of occupancy is pulled, it's final, project's final, it usually takes about 18 months to 2 years to hit the tax rolls. But so you do have some new growth hitting the rolls here, which could offset any sort of smoothing or reduction in historic growth, if there is any. So,
thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Good to see you all again.
All right, now we're going to move on to our action items. And so we'll start with recommendation to consider and if deemed advisable to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of school improvement bonds of the district.
I don't have anything additional to add unless you have additional questions.
All right, seeing no questions, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, and our next action item is approval of first reading of ASBA policy revisions to the following policies, and there's a list. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next action item, renaming of Montecito Community School to Montecito Montessori School.
Yeah, so if you look at our board policy FF around naming facilities, excuse me, most of the time when that policy mainly has to do with if you're naming facilities after individuals. So looking at individuals that have made a unique contribution to the district, that they've passed away for at least 10 years, using the names of individuals that reflect the beliefs and values of the district. So that's if we were going to be renaming the school after an individual. The convention within our district has been naming of our schools around either the streets or the neighborhoods that, are in the district. So the Encanto, there's Encanto Street, Clarendon, Longview, Montecito, Solano, all of them are named after the streets, with the exception of Osborne Middle School, which is, what kind of goes away from that norm because it describes the program that's happening at that school, which is the middle school. So as we've got the Montecito Community School, with this name Community School, back when it was built in 1999, it was very specifically not only built with that name. Community schools is a movement, and there are certain standards that you have when you're established as a community school. It was also built into the construction of the school. So community schools often have spaces for community health being provided, or parent education that's part of the overall program, right? So as we're remodeling the school, some of those facets have been moved, but the design is specific to the Montessori philosophy. So as we've been looking at things like signage, with this program, we want to shout out that what the program is, because specifically we are offering something different. But also staying within our conventions of Montecito. Everybody, knows Montecito School, Longview, Encanto, Clarendon, Solano, our district schools. So incorporating that regular convention with also the program that's in there, changing the name from Montecito Community School to Montecito Montessori School is the recommendation that the school has brought forward.
All right, sounds good. Do we have a motion to approve this item?
I
So-
move to approve the renaming of Montecito Community School to Montecito Montessori School.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We have a new name for our school. Thank you so much for bringing that. All right, and then as was requested in one of our previous board meetings, we have a new action item, approval of governing board meeting dates from January 1st to June 30th of 2026. That way we have the whole school year on the calendar.
So a couple quick things about that, if you don't, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
Okay, a couple quick things with the change in the law. Once again, the January meeting no longer requires the reorganization to happen prior to January 15th. And so coming back right after break, we used to have a work study in January that was just for the purpose of reorganization and approving the calendar, and then our regular meeting. So we've gone to just one January meeting over the past few years. So that recommendation is in there without a work study. One thing that we've done with the work studies is we've reduced the number of work studies and tried to make them if we're going to have a work study, we kind of know. At this time, we look at achievement. At this time, we tend to look at the budget committee recommendation. At this time, we've looked at behavior data types of things. If we're going to move forward with the trust, you can see that we're probably going to have a need for those work studies. Perhaps we'll see the pace at which we move, throughout the year. But there may be calls for more work studies if needed. But just assuming all things regular, this is, as has been recommended or requested by this board, a listing out of dates through the end of the school year, so that we've got this ready for the entire year. I don't, we've gone at a cadence of doing this in January. So if we want to make this our new cadence, then I'm assuming that at that June meeting, we'd be coming up with the calendar of meetings for the 26-27 school year. rather than in January. We can always do it earlier than that if you wanted to, not be waiting till last minute, but.
All right, perfect. Do we have a motion to approve this item?
I have a question.
Okay.
On the agenda item on page 268, it says regular meetings March 17th or 24th. Do we need to select a date?
Yes.
No preference.
So we normally do it the third week. So if that you felt that it was too much to be meeting, right after break, but the normal cadence would be for it to be on the 17th. So it's the third Wednesday. We just gave an option there. So
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. You guys need to pick before you make the motion.
Do you mean Tuesday? You said.
The dates are right. My words may not be matching what the
Just
truth
wanna make
is.
sure.
So yes, it's Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. I really like to get in a really regular cadence because I really want the community to know it's the third Tuesday. Set your calendar by it. Set your so people know. Just like some folks who came in today who live in the neighborhood, they know like okay, if I need to
Tuesday.
come see this Osborne School District, I know it's the third Tuesday, and so like keeping that consistent. So I'd love to set this out again, not wait till the last minute. Bring it back in January to come pretty far out so people really know.
Yep. And to that point, Ed, May doesn't fit the norm. You can see the date that we have is May 12th. The reason that we went with May 12th is because the following week is our last week of the year. And so there's promotion ceremonies happening during that week. And so last year, this board asked to not do a board meeting during the week because you've got promotion Wednesday night, Thursday night. This would be all night or late into the evening on Tuesday. And remember, May is a big one. That's where we want staff there, and I don't want staff to not be there for our big celebration, knowing that they've got Wednesday and Thursday night that they're that OMS staff is there, for that whole week. So that's why we bring that not during promotion week. So there are going to be some exceptions to the rule, but we want to set the
Keep them to a
rule.
minimum. Keep them just to May if we can. All right.
All right.
What about June? June, that's not the third Tuesday either.
Right. That's always set because we need to. I think that's around the budget.
Yeah.
Has to be done before
The 15th.
the 15th.
Yeah, and the third Tuesday is the 16th.
Colleen, isn't that? Oh, it's in July.
Oh, in July. Okay.
Can we?
But we can do June, there's no time, it can't be done too soon to July 15th meeting, but you can still have June on the third.
Can we? Yeah. Can we change that to June 16th rather than
Can.
9th? Okay. Great.
I'll probably be absent on June 16th.
So Lisa's making all the notes of any changes, so you can just say as revised in your motions. And Lisa's catching all these revisions.
Okay. Move to approve the governing board meeting dates from January 1st to January 30th, 2026, as revised.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
Decision for
March 17th, yeah. Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded as revised. All those in favor? Aye.
Right?
Opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. So
And just to follow up on Mr. Thompson's request, in January, we'll bring back for the entire year. So we'll basically go, January will be there, but we'll be doing in January, approving the entire 26-27 school year, getting us
Perfect.
from July 26 through June 27.
perfect, sounds good. All right, and now we have our board development. So we're doing great on time, y'all. All right, so we read part 2, step 1, which was chapters 5, 6, and 7, I believe, of the book. And so we have some questions here. So student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. What is our why in representing our community? Those were the 3 chapters we read. So one of the things that I know Rhiannon and I have already done this work, but writing down and seeing what are some of our behaviors where we are pretending and what that means, right? And so I think this, for me, when I first went through it, it was when I was asked, like, what is something that you have done in the past um, where you were pretending? And so I was honest. When I first went through this exercise, I had just gotten elected. And I think I had had maybe 2 board meetings at that point. And I was very honest with the facilitator when I went through this and said, I did not read my whole package. And so one of the things that I was pretending here was that I was informed, right? And I'm being vulnerable here, sharing this. And I've changed my behavior since, because who was I failing? Our students and our staff. I was sitting up here, and our community who voted for me. I was sitting up here not having fully read the package, not being fully informed on what I was voting on, and what benefits was I getting. And this is an exercise in the book, just so you all know. What benefits was I getting? It was my free time, right? So not sitting down and reading. And I've changed those behaviors. I mean, my wife took me on vacation this last weekend. We got back yesterday. We were up at a cabin in California in the mountains. And Sunday, I was literally on the balcony with the beautiful view with my laptop, reading everything, because I wanted to make sure I was prepared for our meeting. So I wanted to see if you all wanted to be vulnerable with me and share any pretending behaviors that you may have had as a board member, or even just in the education system as a teacher, as a CFO.
I'm happy to share mine. When you go through this exercise, it makes you vulnerable. It really does, and you admit things to yourself. You find out the root cause of your behavior. What did you get out of doing that? And mine was, one of my pretending behaviors was pretending like reading is important. And how I got to that is, every night I tell my son it's time to read. It's time to read. And night after night, we are not reading. And so I'm pretending like reading is important because I say it is, but I'm not actually making it happen in my home. And so essentially that's really sending a message to my son is, well, mom says it's important, but it's not that important because we didn't actually read. And I'm an educator, and reading is important. Reading is important for so many reasons. It's, really the foundation of how we exist as a society, is being able to critically think and analyze. And while I was saying it was so important, I wasn't actually modeling that it was really important. And so super thankful to my son's third grade teachers who send a homework sheet. And now we are super accountable, not only to ourselves, but to our community and to our school, to make sure that we're reading. And now it's part of the night. Now it's just part of our routine. And so I was really thankful for that exercise that really kind of set me straight. And yeah, so those were my pretending behaviors.
Can I just share something too? For those of you wondering why this admission is going on here that didn't have the reading. So our book is about things that school boards can do to be better and to be focused on student outcomes. And so the author of this book was being super vulnerable and talking about how when they became a school board member, there was this item that they brought up having to do with technology, and they were really kind of pushing their own agenda, not necessarily the agenda that was going to help student outcomes in reference to technology. And his admission was he was pretending for some outcome, but he really wanted to show maybe what he knew about technology to the community so that maybe he'd be reelected, right? So thinking about the fact that behaviors, sometimes even behaviors that actually do move the district totally forward, may not be coming from the altruistic goal of this book and hopefully what school boards exist for, which is for student outcomes. That's why the conversation's happening.
I really resonate with that as a parent, by the way, and I really appreciate you saying that, Board Member Ford, and feel very, I don't want to say the same thing, but I feel very similar in a similar way. But by pretending, I'll be honest, I didn't do the reading for today, so I'm kind of feel like I'm pretending in this discussion as a whole. I stopped at page 83 and I have not done this portion of the reading. I'm really excited to do it now because it seems phenomenal. I've got some, and I really do enjoy the book, and I'm 83 pages in, but just not this portion of it. And so I appreciate the opportunity to hold each other accountable, and I will do my homework in advance of the next board meeting. I promise.
I was confused. I thought you didn't do the packet reading. No. For that
Did the packet reading? Didn't do the book reading.
Yes. I mean, I waited. I did the reading last night, so it's not like I was that far ahead of you. But I had to text Violetta to figure out what exactly we were reading, which chapters again. But I think the biggest pretending I do is just kind of that I know what I'm doing. I mean, like you just kind of you fake it till you make it kind of thing on a lot of it. But like we're just trying to do our next the next best thing. Like with the knowledge we have and the skills that we have, try to do the best part and put on a good face. But for a lot of times, it's honestly, it's like I think this is what we're doing. I think this is the right thing, but are we 100% sure? No. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Dr. Robert, would you like to share a vulnerability?
Oh, wow. Well, it really, the fact that board meetings are public, there's a side to this, is that we've got our community that is here, we've got our community that's watching, and we've got an obligation to presenting all the things that we're making decisions about. And not everybody's gonna be an expert on that. So part of it may be faking it till you're making it, but part of it too, in defense of everyone, is we're a room full of experts and not everybody is expected to know everything. So part of the pretending isn't so much pretending. I mean, there is an admission, like on questions about our district finances. I've learned so much in 8+ years as being a superintendent. And I think about where I was, when I first started the job. It was actually part of my interview, like if you're looking for someone that has, all the answers for how we're going to move forward in terms of finances, I may not be that person. Here's what I do bring. And I think about all the learning that I've done over the past 8.5 years. I've learned a lot and grown a lot, extending myself now into, being on the Kairos board and stuff like that to learn even more about the operations of our district. But there are so many times that I'm reliant on Colleen's expertise. I'm reliant on Dr. Woodland's expertise. I'm reliant on Abby's expertise. I'm reliant on the principals and, my entire team. And so, but there's a certain part of presenting, like the beginning part of an item. That's why I will quickly just say, yeah, Colleen's going to lead us in that part of the agenda because I'm really outside of my league, in certain things. Like why I don't want to stumble my way through it. I'll let the expert talk about that. So that's one thing that I don't know that it's necessarily pretending, but something that I feel really good about is we've been doing a lot of work as an administrative team around strengths-based leadership and looking, we've got this grid that's got all of us and what our strengths are, and recognizing like, wow, we've got a really good balance. We've got people that are super, super, super strategic. And, when we're carrying out a certain initiative, we need those people that can think through how to do something strategically and carry it through, in action, as well as the people that are really great with ideas or the relationship side of making things happen. So yeah, I guess in terms of pretending, I'm a part of the puzzle, and I think sometimes I will present here as if I know all the answers, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I absolutely have a team that does.
Thank you for sharing. And I think it's true for us as board members as well. There is no training, right? There's absolutely no training on how to be a good board member. and even I know a training I was invited to, and I won't say who, put the training on. I didn't learn anything. It was a 1-day training orientation to onboard board members.
Is it one I did?
No, 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 not yours, not yours. An organization, and there was, yeah, it was absolutely like they basically told me that I had to listen to everything you said, and so I was like, no, we collaborate, and as a board, we're elected by the community, and so this book it makes you take a deep dive into our why, and why we're here. And so that's the next prompt here is Osborne's why is evident in our mission statement. The Osborne community advances the full potential of every child by developing emotional intelligence and academic excellence. Where is that present in the work we do as a governing board? So would anybody like to take a stab at that?
That's kind of leading. That could be about tonight. It could be in, like when we look at that mission statement, that's what the chapter was about, your why. When we look at that mission statement and thinking about board agendas, is that why? Was it present in our agenda for tonight? And if it wasn't, what can we do to change that narrative?
On page 100, at the very top line, the only way to be responsive to taxpayers is to be focused on student outcomes. And combining our district focus this year on academic excellence and now approving another $40 million to come into our district, we've never been more accountable for our student outcomes than we are now, because our community has said emphatically, yes, we want money for schools. Yes, we want your students to have the best of the best. Our voters voted overwhelmingly to pass these bonds. And so I really am excited about this school year and our academic excellence focus, because that's how we're going to pay back our community. We're going to pay back our community by educating our kids, making sure that they're good citizens, because our students who are in our schools today are going to be our future leaders. They're going to be our future folks that work in hospitals, that are on fire departments, that are future teachers. Our community is only going to be as good as our public schools are, and the products that we're turning out. And so I'm really excited for this school year to really say thank you in an actual tangible way, which is improving our student outcomes.
All right. Any other comments? Not from Ed, I know.
I got comments. I got comments.
All right. And in the last chapter, it talked a lot about getting sidetracked into focusing from one, like we understand that we're going to hear from people in our community, from parents, from staff. And so the author was talking about how he was approached by a community member and then talked to the rest of the community to come up with an action item. And when that response that came from the solution to this problem was not what that first community member wanted, but it was what was going to be best for the safety of the whole community. And so I know that we can get sidetracked, right? I feel like us as a board, I feel like we do a pretty good job in not getting sidetracked into other things. As I've mentioned before, I geek out on watching other board meetings, and I can see how sometimes those board members get sidetracked on specific things. I won't call anyone out, but I'm thankful that I do feel like as a board here together, we're all here for the student outcomes. But are there any instances where you've seen us get sidetracked or not get sidetracked?
I think we do a pretty good job of staying on track. But one thing I wrote down here when I was reading is kind of the loudest voices are not the only voices. And I think that's something just to keep in mind, that, just because, they're making, you've got, whether it be community members or staff or whoever is saying one thing, there might be 100 other people who have a different opinion who are just not saying anything yet. So taking that into account, that it's, try to think about what's the best thing for the district, and not just responding to, oh, well, this person says we need to do that. Well, is that the best thing for the district?
I think it's really easy to get sidetracked because people have issues and people bring their issues to their elected officials to get resolved, and that's good. That's democracy. That's a good thing. But it is rare that there's issues. They're usually something very specific. It's rare that the issue is, hey, I want to improve the academic excellence. Those aren't the kind of things that people bring to us. But that's what we need to stay focused on. That's what we've got to be, like a laser, stay focused on and keep central. And I think we could do a better job at it. And looking at our agendas, I think, and this book does a good job of talking about that, of conferences and agendas, and kind of trying to make it an objective measures. And I think we could do a better job about focusing on the academic excellence and keeping that central to everything.
All right. Any other comments on the reading? Okay. Well, thank you all for the conversation. I think as a board, it's important that we're also making sure that we continue growing and learning, and so that's why we have these books. So I'll move on to our next item, which is reflections. We'll start with you, Board Member Thompson.
Thank you. I have a whole lot. I was really pleased that we can get the bond sale going to really have that next step to get those improvements done throughout the district. I was able to attend the ASBA Law Conference a few weeks ago, and so there was some good stuff, especially on safety and security, that I want to talk to Dr. Robert about, just kind of see where we're at in Osborne and kind of suggestions they had, so I want to do that. But other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you so much. Board Member Hermes.
Similar, great to see Jennifer McClendon back today. She was a pleasure to work with last time around. It feels like a while ago, but excited about those opportunities and maybe diving into those policies. And excited about the bond issue moving forward as quickly as possible to support our students. That's it.
Perfect. Clerk Ford, please.
I want to say Feliz Mes de la Herencia Hispana, happy Hispanic Heritage Month to our community. Specifically want to mention Mexican Independence Day today, and wanted to also mention Costa Rican Independence yesterday. So happy Hispanic Heritage Month to our community. And I'm going to echo the sentiments about the bond sale. I'm really excited that we are issuing another $40 million to improve our schools. And so for folks in the room, people watching online, or anybody who is interested in education, the reason we have to go out for these bonds is that the Arizona legislature has not been following the Constitution when it comes to publicly funding capital improvements for our schools. I wanted to thank the Glendale Elementary School District, who, along with several other school districts and the Arizona School Board Association, the Arizona Education Association, and the Arizona School Administrator Association, all sued the state. So thank you for doing that, because they found out that the state legislature is not providing the capital that we need for our public schools here in Arizona. And in fact, their funding structure is unconstitutional and needs to be fixed. So why do we go out for bonds? Because we haven't been getting the money that our school districts deserve, because the Arizona legislature is not doing their job to fund our schools. So I just wanted to thank all of those involved in the lawsuit. Hopefully we will see a school funding formula for capital that will actually be constitutional and will actually help the needs of our public schools. If you have not read the lawsuit, I would highly suggest you at least read the order. Some of the conditions, there are photos in the order. Some of the photos of schools, especially a lot of our rural schools, are heartbreaking, that we would allow children to be in those buildings and continually neglect the funding structure that would fix those buildings. So I'm really excited for the bond, and the reason we need the bond is because the legislature hasn't been funding our schools. So thank you to all of those who signed on to the lawsuit. Glad that our schools they're going to fix it. I hope they fix it because, again, Arizona is only going to be as strong as the students that we produce in our public schools. Public schools are attended by over 85% of Arizona students, and they are necessary. So hoping that when the legislature comes back in January that they can fix what they have not fixed in the past. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. My reflection, super excited to have OEA here and to know that it's going to be a standing item. So we will be hearing your updates. Like I've mentioned before, you have a board that supports you, and we want to work collaboratively with you and be thought partners through this all to improve our school district. Dr. Herbert?
Yeah, my reflection, interestingly enough, when we talked in this book about student outcomes focus, if you look at our agenda and all the work that we did tonight, it was operations driven. And so, but that's okay. And I think that we just need to, when we're talking about this move towards being student outcomes focused, connecting the dots. How does, Rhiannon just did a great job of talking about how that dot connects to student outcomes. So, I don't want that this is just about test scores. That doesn't mean what being focused on students is. It's about making sure that, though, that it, not getting tangential, making very clear links to how certain things that are the business and operations of our district are focused on student outcomes. Because when we've got a strong ops department, all of our ops departments that feed our kids, that get our kids to school on time, that make special arrangements to make sure kids get there, that they get extracurricular opportunities by getting there, that they have the technology to enhance their learning, that we are operationally bringing about academic excellence too. So I don't want that to go by the wayside, for it to just sound like by talking about those types of things, we're not talking about student outcomes.
Thank you so much. All right, future agenda items. Board Member Thompson?
I guess I'll be the one to say I would like to talk about the trust policies as an agenda item.
Board Member Hermes?
I was going to say that too, but I will also say maybe not the next one, but at some point, maybe mid-year, talk about substitute teacher. I know we get a substitute teacher report, but I understand that there's some substitute teacher. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, but maybe tinkering or policy changes or thoughts related. I just want to check in mid-year, see how that's going. Our substitute, are the costs higher, lower, exactly what we expected them to be? How is that working out? So we just want to do a kind of mid-year check on that.
All right, Clerk Ford?
Thank you. I would like to see, I know that Mr. Hermes had requested last meeting information and feedback from parents and staff about the new calendar. In addition to getting feedback from our stakeholders, I would also like to see the attendance data on those first 2 days. And that's it for me.
All right, no future items for me. And with that, we adjourn the meeting officially at 7:18 p.m.